a result of being able to measure and optimize that budget. So that might be difficult to comprehend. Let me show you an example of what I mean and how it's affected the way we market. And this is the answer that was given away already. So a couple of treatments. So how do you go to market? If you've got a campaign, you've got a promotion, you've got an offer that you want to make, who decides what that looks like? And in most businesses, historically, that's the creative guys that are going to do that. There's lots of ways you can have of deciding how you deliver a campaign to people. But typically it's the creative folks. You might have a committee of folks that look at this. It might be the HIPPO strategy, and everyone knows what that is, the highest paid person or officer that makes the decision. But it's probably not very scientific. And so here's an example that we ran of a campaign we wanted to launch. We wanted to launch a social competition. We launched a product called Creative Cloud back in May. Really important to us that we measured that and we optimized that. And how do we figure out which creative is going to work? So our creative guy said, well, we've got one creative which is very visual, I think will stimulate people, but may not drive a response. And the goal here was to get people to enter a competition and to learn about the product. And another creative on the right, which is a bit more functional, a bit less creative, a bit more functional type of appeal. Now we all know the answer to this, apart from the fact you may have seen it, and we're all very clever First Tuesdayists. What do you call a First Tuesday person? First Tuesdayists. So how many people think that the one on the left, Experience A, is going to drive the highest success rate for this campaign? Anyone? Kind of half the folks. B? Almost half the folks, plus Krista, very importantly. And the answer is A. And A drove 12% higher success rate for achieving the conversion. We know that. It's a fairly simple, anyone with a maths background will know the principle of A/B testing. Fairly simple process to run that through and look at exactly which creative drives the best conversion. But equally, the second treatment also had another effect. So there are two aims of this thing: enter a competition or learn about the product. And the second creative we found drove the greatest number of people, a 200% increase in the number of people that went to learn about the products. And so as we looked around the data and segmented the data, you can see that different segments of people, different categories of people respond differently to different offers, different creative offers, which is logical and makes sense. Just don't know how to track that. So the way in which we track that is to literally watch every creative asset that we deliver, who it's delivered to, simply by placing a cookie on a machine or a mobile device from the person responding to that, and then segmenting those groups over days, over weeks, across millions of interactions. And by doing that and looking at the variables that you can collect, so this is anonymously done, looking at the variables that you can collect, building, so variables like the time of day, the country or location, the referring site maybe or search term that drove the person to that site. Taking a bunch, about a couple of hundred variables, we can build a very highly predictive behavioral profile. So by collecting a big data source and looking at that and understanding that, we can really build this very, very highly predictive profile of people so that we know when someone hits a site, uses an app, just interacts with us, we can immediately go and look at the 1 million people that did that in the last 6 weeks and figure out what's the best offer, what's the best content, what's the best treatment to show that individual. So that's reality today, and we actually do that with a number of our customers, and that's how we run our site today and how we optimize our site today. And in doing that, we think we've got a lift of about 20% of conversion to our own business. And online, we sell about $500 million of stuff every year. Now that's anonymously done. So imagine what you can do if people tell you what they're interested in. And that's where I'd like to propose that social comes in, and Libby pointed to this earlier, the notion that now we're volunteering a wealth of information that allows marketers to understand more about us and what our preferences are. So obviously the things that we put into Facebook, we're expressing our interests and sometimes letting people and service providers understand those interests. But equally, again, the sporting anecdote that I'm putting my my sporting activity into a site or into a service like Garmin offer, and telling them what my health is, what my heart rate is when I do my exercise, what kind of exercise I'm doing. I'm putting my travel schedule with BA. I'm putting my professional network into LinkedIn. We can then potentially combine that with my location to see which of my professional colleagues are in the area that I'm in. I'm volunteering all this information, making a much richer profile. What I like to think of as the digital self profile that I'm putting up there into the ether, which is highly available for marketers to then use to target the service or offer that they provide you with. And the best one I love at the moment is I'm in love with Spotify at the moment. There's a music service which I think is fantastic. Happened to notice that it's actually advertising to everyone on my network what I'm listening to at any particular point in time. And even my wife noticed this, so she knows before I walk in the door what kind of mood I'm in based on the music that I've been listening to. So we've gone even further with this strategy and try to invest more into targeting and marketing based on this social data that people are providing. So when it came to our most recent launch, which was again a thing called the Creative Cloud we launched in May, we built a strategy based on paid, earned and owned social media, and invested a huge proportion of our budget in doing that to try and optimize and more accurately target the investment that we were making, which again it was tens of millions of pounds. And it had a pretty profound effect. So firstly, we managed to increase the number of referrals to our site by about 3 million people. So increasing the number of folks that were coming to our site in the first month by about 3 million people. Secondly, we then discovered, actually, we didn't know this, but we discovered that folks that were referred to our business through a social channel had around about twice the propensity to spend than someone that wasn't for some reason. So it increased our revenue referred to from social, and that actually hit 13% of the revenue that we recognised was sourced by social channels. And we can track and connect that because we've built this infrastructure for all our other digital channels already. And then that had the third result of actually reducing the amount of money we had to spend on advertising because the other stuff is so much more effective. And we reduced our ad spend by 28% compared to what we would have had to do had we not used this targeting. And then fourthly, we were able to track back down to the individual contributor the referred revenue. So literally connect the social impact back to a business result, right back to an individual person that maybe made a referral of this service. And in one case found a Twitter follower who referred $5,000 worth of business to us through his or her network. So great experience for us, which really kind of moved the needle in terms of how we were running our campaign. And then final point is we've started to work with our clients on using those experiences to do exactly the same thing. I don't know if anyone saw the Paddy Power activity at the Ryder Cup at the weekend. Some interesting guerrilla marketing tactics. They're a client of ours and have a big social media marketing campaign to get people into using their service through particularly Facebook, and are tracking. We're not allowed to share any of the numbers, which are fantastic, but are tracking the impact into sourced and referred business by targeting with great granularity using these social media demographics. And the second example is Bruno Mars, and I'll maybe give you a bit more detail about that offline, but we've been able to work with Warner Music to convert followers that follow all these musicians into business, and can convert business again by targeting social media. So that was the lens through which we're looking at this, and the conclusion that I draw is that big data is incredibly relevant to marketers. We've spent the last 30 years as a company focusing on the creative side of marketing. My view, and increasingly Adobe's view, is we're going to spend the next 3 years focusing dramatically on optimizing marketing by using big data. Thank you.